Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. My name's Drew Nature, and welcome to the first episode of the Critical Fanboy. Today I'm going to be reviewing Scale the Summit's new album, In a World of Fear. So take a listen with me. Does In a World of Fear live up to my expectations, or does it let me down compared to the previous release that I loved so much, V? Well, while it didn't shatter my expectations, I wasn't wholly disappointed either. What more can you really ask for? It's a beautiful album with excellent guitar playing, and I think you should check it out. For me and my friends, the instrumental metal scene really broke with 2007's release by Animals as Leaders. However, little did we know, another amazing instrumental metal band was rising in the wings alongside them. Scale the Summit, formed in 2004 in Texas. They've released 6 albums, and their latest, In a World of Fear, proves to bring them further into the mainstream and draw many new fans. They've opened for my favorite band, Protest the Hero, and actual good bands like Periphery, Cynic, and Dream Theater. However, I didn't discover them until they opened for another one of my favorite bands, Intronaut, in 2013. Although I was blown away by the energy on stage and the musicianship of the band, the virtuoso playing, the only track on The Migration that really spoke to me was the final track, The Traveler. It wasn't until the next album, V, that I really fell head over heels in love with this band, and songs like Soria Moria, Stolus, Kestrel, and Orcloud. V really speaks to me and is one of my most listened to albums of the last 2 years. Instrumental metal bands prove that you don't need vocals to paint a vivid picture in the listener's mind. Scale the Summit really embodies this concept. Even their name alone, it really evokes, at least for me on the previous albums, 2013's The Migration and 2015's V, a sense of being out in nature, climbing cliffs, looking at beautiful vistas. When you watch the videos of Chris playing in front of the hills and the forest, that's what you think of when you're listening to those albums. And In a World of Fear is not that world. It's similar, but it's like the album cover. This is a dark, desolate place filled with similar beauty, but it's just colored in a different way. You can still hear Chris's signature guitar tone. It's clean and beautiful as spring water, but the environment in which it's flowing in is just, it's a little bit grittier. And the layers of production are certainly different. All of the members of the band, besides the only remaining founding member, the band leader, Chris Letchford, have changed. There is no permanent second guitarist in this band anymore. They're a 3-piece with a lot of guest stars. When you look at the back of the album cover and you see Yvette Young, Jeff Loomis, Angel Vivaldi, these are the guest stars. When you look at the back of the album, it raises the question in the listener's mind preemptively, is this album going to be cohesive? Is each guitarist going to make the songs disjointed? And I can firmly say that this album is very cohesive. Chris does an excellent job of choosing the right guitarist for his songs and crafting the songs around those guitarists. And I think he chose these featured guitarists as almost a test, an homage to to his peers, but also to prove to the world, hey, I can bring this awesome guitarist in to play a sweet solo, and now it's part of my body of work. For instance, the last track, The Warden, features 3 people. Nathan Navarro on bass, John Brown from Monuments wrote the entire middle section, and Scott Carstairs from Fallujah plays one of the best solos on the album, up there alongside the virtuoso solos on the song Cosmic Crown, featuring Jeff Loomis and James Ziani. Another track on the heavier side of the album, Witch House, features Angel Vivaldi and really showcases what Chris Letchford is all about. Amazing, beautifully crafted riffs that really hit you emotionally. So since you have these tracks with amazing guest stars like The Warden and Cosmic Crown, you might be asking yourself, what about the other tracks where it's just Chris? Are these going to hold up? Are they going to still have the same impact? And Across the board, yes. Chris does a really good job of bringing the heat on this album. And whether as a featured guitarist or not, the consistency in the playing is really strong. Chris has a remarkable repertoire of catchy and melodic riffs on this album, but there's also a lot of experimentation. He seems like he's really stepping outside of his comfort zone. And on tracks where there aren't featured guitarists, he's really showing you the more eclectic side of Scale the Summit. You get the classically amazing solos on songs like Cosmic Crown and Goddess Gate, where the influences from Eric Johnson and Joe Satriani are unmistakable, and I'm drawn back to when I was 5 years old listening to Flying in a Blue Dream on my dad's headphones. However, on songs like Royal Orphan, there's an amazing percussive element where you get a battle between pop and slap guitar and bass, reminiscent of Animals as Leaders, songs like Physical Education. Astro Kids is a song on the album that sounds the most like the previous work, and it has a melodic, hypnotic tapping riff, beautiful solos, and contemporary jazz parts. Dream 12 is another song with no featured guitarist where Chris really shines. This song is really in-depth and groovy, with a lot of ambient textures. There are many layers of pulsating guitars, and the effects on the guitars are really well crafted. Hearing that so many of the members of the band were going to change had me a little bit worried. I remembered that Chris Letchford, the lead guitarist, was the meat and potatoes of the previous albums, and he wrote all the guitars on The Collection, The Migration, and V. So I wasn't too worried. I was just apprehensive. Upon getting the new album, there are a few noticeable differences. For me, V had a very traditional prog rock sound. It wasn't too crazy in the metal department. In that respect, In a World of Fear has much more metal tones. And what I mean is that there's a heavier distortion and a more gent, doom, and death metal feel to some of these riffs. But in my opinion, V was a more aggressive album. In a World of Fear is melancholy, sad, depressed. Sure, it sounds more metal, but V was more creative, more experimental. It tread more ground. On In a World of Fear, the songcraft has evolved. The songs have less repetition, and they go on for less amount of time. Overall, it's a more condensed and restrained approach. But I don't find it as captivating as V. On In a World of Fear, there's a marked improvement on the solos, and I think it's definitely better than The Migration. However, V was just the epitome of this prog rock instrumental metal sound for me, and I think Chris's desire to combat some of the criticism that it was a little boring or mellow or tepid or timid, I think that he went too far in the other direction. I miss some of the passion and energy from V. And I think that it doesn't have to do so much with the lineup change as much as his desire to condense the songs. So one of my major fears coming into this album from V, having heard that there was a lineup change, was the solidity and patterns of the drumming. One of my biggest fears coming into this album was that the drumming I loved so much in Migration and V would be altered in a way that would make the band seem different to me. And Charlie Engen really, he shines on this album in his own ways, but only here and there. He doesn't really have a chance to spread his wings and fly, which is fine. This isn't his project necessarily. This band isn't dedicated to the drummer. But a chance he does get to shine is on Neon Tomb, a song I would really like to have been a little bit longer. And this song clocks in under 3 minutes, although it's probably one of my favorites on the album. And it has a really great drum solo, one of the only 2 tracks on the album with an actual drum solo, it and The Warden. And I think that Charlie does a great job. They really blend the drums and the synth and the bass really well on Neon Tomb, and you can hear the seeds of good things to come. As far as the bass player, Killian, I think he does a good job, but he needs to muscle his way into the creative process a little bit more. I think he does a good job overall on this album. I'm very impressed with his technique and his tone. However, I think that creatively, it's not as forefront in the overall composition of the songs as Mark Michel's bass playing was. Maybe it's a creative choice in the sense that Scale the Summit is now leaning a little more heavier than they were in Migration, was a little more proggy and jazzier. The album begins with ambience, an ambient synth pad. And this pad, or a variation of it, plays in between the songs, almost like the Mars Volta. And it's really good. It brings the whole album together. This subtle theme, they do it in different ways. There's lots of pattern changes, there's lots of texture changes. And there's one thing that stands out for me as a creative choice that I applaud, and at the same time I'm a little bit critical of. There is a pronounced fuzz sound, either from a synth or from the bass guitar, and it's a theme of the album, but sometimes it gets a little grating. Sometimes it kind of gets in your way. When you're really focused and you're following the melody of the guitar, there's a static sound in the middle of it, almost like someone didn't ground their guitar properly. And it pulls me out of some of the things. At other times, I really do like it and appreciate it. I like that they went the route of incorporating more synths in their sound, like Animals as Leaders or Prolifia. It's certainly a trendy thing to do in a way, but it does add a level of textural value that's important. V really captivated me with its lush qualities and beautiful songs such as Soria Moria, Pontus Exinus, and Stolas. I felt like these songs were perfectly crafted. Although playing maybe in the shallow waters for a bit too long, these songs offered a rich, complete experience. Similar sounding songs on In a World of Fear, tracks such as Astral Kids, Royal Orphan, and Cosmic Crown, for me just don't deliver on the same level. They are well crafted, they're well put together, don't get me wrong, but it seems like a step down for me in terms of emotional depth and an overall complete experience. Where for me, V sounded like the evolution of a complete band expressing themselves. You can hear the disjointed quality on In a World of Fear start to come through upon repeated listen. Overall, I really enjoyed this album, and it's something I'm going to be listening to for a long time to come. It has enough to give you a different song for a different mood, depending on what you're into. I will sit down and play Mass or Cosmic Crown and just kind of let it play, and it helps me when I'm being creative, when I'm writing, to put music like this on. One of the shortcomings of Scale the Summit in the past for me is that some of their songs tend to get a little boring. The parts tend to go on too long. And I think that's criticism Chris has taken to heart on this album. The parts, while they do repeat and each song doesn't have that many, they don't go on for too long, and the change-ups are always an appropriate energy. In a World of Fear is a great album for new listeners to metal, and it's a great album to put on if you have friends who are thinking about getting into heavier music, but maybe the vocals are a barrier to entry. In a World of Fear can show the world that metal is beautiful and valuable. I'm really happy that this band has continued, and I love the new album, and I can't wait to delve into it more. I don't quite like it as much as V, but they're still one of my favorite bands. Chris Letchford, Scale the Summit, In a World of Fear has just been equalized. I'm Drew Nature. Thanks for watching the first episode of the Critical Fanboy. I'll see you later. Peace.
Many cats are come around my way, they show an improved groove in their own way. What we say is bye-bye to the wagness, no favor. Turning up the energy, burning down the theater. 8 more layers to go, all the time I've spent just polishing gold. Come on, 4 more beats in the measure, rocking the house, it would be my pleasure. Come on.
Alright, cool. Now that that's over with, I can get back to my real passion.
Just